How's it going, everyone? I'm Briscoe, and today I've got 25 tips and tricks that might help save you some time or just make your Diablo experience a little smoother. If you find any of these tips helpful, please leave a like as it helps tremendously, and feel free to subscribe if you like the content. Without further ado, let's get into it. When you're hunting for aspects from the Codex of Power to round out your build, you can open the Codex of Power by pressing Y on PC, and when you hover over an aspect you don't have yet, you can actually left-click on it, and now on your map, it will pin the location of the corresponding dungeon so you know exactly where to go. Don't neglect your class-specific quests and systems as you level. I'm talking about spirit boons for druids, the arsenal and expertise for barbarians, the enchantment system for wizards, the specializations for rogues, and the Book of the Dead for necromancers. Unlock them and put them to use as soon as possible, as these are crucial to get your build up and running. While progressing through the campaign for the first time, World Tier 1 is the best option if you're just trying to get to endgame as soon as possible. Transition into World Tier 2 once you beat the campaign and you're about ready for the first capstone dungeon. Once you complete it, go ahead and get into World Tier 3 immediately. At this point, your goal should be to defeat the next capstone dungeon as soon as possible, because that opens up World Tier 4, which will drastically increase your XP gains and give you access to huge gear upgrades. Even if you struggle at first in a new World Tier, try and stick it out, because you should have multiple massive upgrades in just the first hour or two. If you decide to level any alts, you can skip the campaign, go straight into World Tier 2 from the jump, and level at a much faster pace. Speaking of alts, before you head for that character creation screen, you might want to consider maxing out your Renown in your main character if you've already completed the first 2 or 3 Renown tiers in each zone. When you create a new character, you will inherit all the Renown rewards that your main has already unlocked. However, if you didn't fully complete all 5 Renown tiers in each region, you'll have to work your way up starting from scratch on your alt. Imprint your aspects thoughtfully. Aspects imprinted on two-handed weapons gain a 100% increase in effectiveness, while aspects put on amulets will gain a 50% bonus to its effectiveness. That said, you should be putting your strongest aspects for your build on your two-handed weapons and amulets. Don't be afraid to salvage legendaries. If you hold on to every legendary you come across, you will find yourself running out of stash space very quickly. Duplicate legendaries or common legendaries with low rolls can be safely dismantled. You will need the materials you get from dismantling them to imprint aspects, enchant, and upgrade gear. The legendaries you want to hang on to are those with max rolls, those that are rare and not found in the Codex of Power, and anything you think you will need for specific builds later on. Once you complete the campaign, focus on maxing out your Renown as far as you can. If you're struggling with the capstone dungeon, consider getting at least the level 2 Renown unlocks for each region, as the potion charges will come in handy. One of the sickest looking mounts in the game is actually free. This is the Spectral Charger. To get this mount, all you have to do is farm Legion events. They will pop up on your map regularly, and at the end of each one, you'll have a chance to get the mount. I'm not sure what the exact drop rate is, but I got mine on about the 10th Legion event I did. Don't be afraid to respec your character often and try out different builds. I respec'd 3 or 4 times by level 45, trying out different builds, and while it does get progressively more expensive, gold is easy to come by, and what matters most is that you're enjoying your build and having fun in the game. From around level 30 and on, don't hesitate to upgrade your gear and jewelry to at least level 2. By this point, you should have tons of materials stocked up, and it's very cheap to upgrade the first few times. These upgrades don't seem like much at first, but they add up quickly and will help you out a lot. While you're leveling, have a general idea of the builds you want to run so you can keep an eye out for the specific aspects. Some are very rare, and if you accidentally dismantle it, it may be a while before you see another. When in doubt, put it in the stash and go through it later. Nightmare dungeons are a huge part of the game and weren't explained very well, if at all. You get your first Nightmare Sigils from the Tree of Whispers reward caches, and after completing a Tier 3 Nightmare dungeon, you unlock the ability to craft sigils at the Occultist. Tier 1 Nightmare dungeons have level 55 enemies in them, and each tier increases their level by 1. You want to be running Nightmare dungeons with enemies 3 levels above your level for the most efficient XP gains. Don't neglect farming your nightmare dungeons and upgrading your glyphs, as these are perhaps the largest power gains your character gets at endgame. If you didn't already know, loot labels will disappear after a short time if you don't pick up the item. On PC, you can press the Alt key and right thumbstick on controller to display loot labels again for 10 seconds. Or you can change its setting in the gameplay options. Press this regularly to ensure you don't miss any of the loot on the ground. I cannot emphasize enough how important using your evade charges really is, especially as you get further into endgame. Failure to evade certain mechanics can result in being chain CC'd for multiple seconds or just getting straight up one-shot. Learning to utilize your evade charges effectively is very important. Some classes have more built-in mobility than others, so if you're playing a non-mobile class, consider finding gear that gives you additional charges of evade. As you know, the stats on items have a range they can roll, but did you know there are 6 power level breakpoints that dictate the stats that can roll on each item? It sounds confusing, but bear with me. For example, here are the power level breakpoints for the strength stat on gloves. These are the item power level breakpoints here on the left, and on the right is the range of the strength stat that can roll in each range. This means if you have an item that is power level 330, you can upgrade them 2 times at the blacksmith, and now that the item is level 340, it falls into the next stat bracket and will most likely have much better rolls. When you first start leveling, grab all the herbs you can find. You can take them to the Alchemist and craft elixirs that will give you a 5% XP bonus for 30 minutes while it's active. It doesn't matter which ones you craft early on, just try and craft as many as you can to keep that XP bonus rolling. As you move into mid-game, you won't have to craft them as much anymore, as you get them as drops pretty often. Also, don't forget to visit the Alchemist every 10 levels or so to upgrade your potion's effectiveness as well. If you're trying to max out your Renown most efficiently, consider accepting all side quests in a zone before going on a dungeon clearing spree. Many side quests send you into dungeons to complete them, so you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And if you're feeling extra big-brained, you can try and combine nightmare sigils to those same dungeons if you feel like killing a whole lot of birds with 1 stone. Core stats such as strength, intelligence, willpower, and dexterity do not matter much until late game. So, if you're on the fence between 2 items or struggling to figure out which piece is better, don't stress the core stats too much early on. Stats such as crit chance or crit damage are usually a better choice in the early game. Helltide zones appear every other hour or so at different locations on the map. You can farm mobs or do events to obtain cinders. These cinders can be spent to open chests that are scattered around the Helltide zones. They range in cost from 75 cinders for armor pieces and rings to 150 cinders for 2-handed weapons. However, there are mystery chests that are not displayed on the map, and if you can find them, they cost 175 cinders to open, and they drop tons of good stuff and often multiple legendaries, elixirs, and mats. After you complete your build and have target farmed the aspects you want, I'd recommend going after these mystery chests as often as you can. There is a website, helltides.com, which I will link in the description, that will make it easier for you to locate these mystery chests. Just look for the chest with a green dot next to it and see how many upvotes it got. If it has a lot of upvotes, it's likely that it's the location that a mystery chest has spawned. Also, if you haven't found out yet, don't die in Helltide zones. You will lose half of your cinders when you die, and it doesn't feel good. I wouldn't know personally, but I mean, from what I've heard. Bullshit. Keep an eye on your Obals and make sure you don't cap out. You can see what your maximum is by checking the top of your stats menu. Renown levels will help increase this cap. I'd recommend gambling on gloves or offhands if you're looking for a specific offensive aspect to complete your build. Otherwise, you can get a few keys for the whispering chests or anything else you need. I'd recommend keeping at least 4 to 5 million gold on hand at all times post level 50. You will want to be able to imprint aspects, enchant items, add sockets, and upgrade gear when you get new pieces. If you're really close to moving up from World Tier 3 to World Tier 4, for example, stockpiling up to 10 million gold wouldn't be a bad idea, as you'll most likely come across multiple upgrades in just the first few hours being in that higher world tier. If you haven't already, in the gameplay settings menu, turn on Advanced Tooltip Compare and Advanced Tooltip Information. We want all the data we can get, and these options are a must. Save your gems! As you progress through the game, you'll get a crap load of gems. Keep your gear socketed and stash the gems you aren't using. As we level up and move into higher world tiers, we will keep unlocking new gems to acquire and craft. Don't think that World Tier 4 is the end-all be-all. There have already been leaks that World Tier 5 is in the works, as well as new gem ranks all the way up to rank 8. So hold on to your gems as they can always be upgraded into better ones in the future. World bosses are another important aspect of Diablo 4, as they can drop great gear, but more importantly, scattered prisms that are needed to add sockets to items. They don't come around often, I believe roughly every 6 hours or so if you see one on the map, don't miss out. Game 8 on Twitter actually posts world boss notifications about 30 minutes out. So if you're on Twitter, give them a follow and get notified when world bosses are spawning. Link is in the description. And for my last tip, don't overthink your gear too much when below level 60 or so. I've caught myself late at night, already tired from grinding, trying to compare all these gear stats, and my brain just starts hurting and it takes away from the fun of the game. You will be replacing gear so fast until above level 60, don't worry too much. By the time you get to level 60, you will have a better understanding of the pieces and stats you need. Anyway, that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope some of these tips were helpful for you, and hope you have a great rest of your day. See y'all in the next one.